If you take the name ECAS, it stands for European Citizen Action Service.
ECAS is about ensuring citizens' rights and giving citizens the mechanisms to enable them to own those rights and see them in action.
The vision of ECAS is to see a citizen-centric participation in the European decision process. It's about citizens playing an active role and having a better understanding of the European Union and of means by which the European decision makers can take into consideration the valid views and requirements of citizens.
The way I have always seen it is that ECAS is the voice of the European citizen. And the role of the organization is to bring citizenship issues in Europe onto the agenda of stakeholders and decision makers. There are so many great ambitions, and Europe is for the people. Europe is for the citizen. This is what you hear on Sunday, and on Monday, what the citizens get is a lot of red tape and a lot of no's and a lot of complexity. And ECAS has always been working to make Europe easy for citizens to participate, to make their voices heard, and to have a stake. And that's what I would call the main purpose.
The idea of an empowered citizenship that understands that it has rights, that wants a voice, that wants to be heard. And therefore, I think part of the work that we're doing as ECAS is about how we reinforce citizens' ability to be heard and their understanding of what democracy is.
The Maastricht Treaty came into force in 1992. ECAS was formed in the process leading up to the finalisation of that treaty. And that treaty, for the first time, stopped treating what we now know as citizens as being subjects of the member state. They became citizens in their own right. The driving force behind ECAS was about ensuring that just giving the people the title of citizen is one thing, but to give them the sense of being citizens is quite another thing. And in giving them sense, you also have to give them power and access to information in order that they can play the real role that in a democratic process that citizens should be able to play, and which was envisaged at the time of the Maastricht Treaty.
And ECAS often held hotlines, what they called hotlines, to actually connect with citizens, invite them to call in and tell their experience of trying to move cross borders, facing difficulties in the exercise of their rights. And these projects were limited in time and funded by the Commission. And eventually the Commission started to like these initiatives and thought it would be better maybe if it provided the service in its own name. And it issued a call for tenders in 1996, if I recall well. And ECAS won the first contract and then won many more after that. And that's how it started. So basically, we could say, we like to think at ECAS that we inspired the Commission for having a similar service. In fact, we even promoted the idea that the Commission should take ownership for something like that.
That's actually a very professional advice helpline service for European citizens, where you could call or write an email with an issue that you are experiencing anywhere in Europe, on the ground, and where you think there is a European angle to it, legal angle, actually.
We're doing it in all the languages of Europe and for all the countries of Europe, taking into consideration European law and local law. So it is technically be very accurate.
We are now between 25 and 30,000 questions which citizens and businesses submit to your Europe Advice. ECAS is our contractor, is the contractor of the European Commission.
We are not a portal. We are not just a website with full of general information or with a pre-written reply. The difference is we have a team of legal experts, and when people come to us, we will give a tailor-made advice. So we will really try to cover any aspect of their reply. It will be adapted to their need, to their activity, to their language. So we will really reply to the language of the citizen. And also we are going to really make an effort to make it user-friendly, easy to understand, to make it as concrete as possible and avoid any kind of legal jargon. And also the aim at the end, it's the person will get this advice and can use it to go to the administration or to contact specific bodies, really and they know what to do.
Since the beginning of Your Europe Advice 25 years ago, we have answered about 350,000 inquiries, or even a bit more. And we have a database with these 350,000 real-life cases. And we use them in an anonymized form for preparing policy initiatives or legal initiatives.
ECAS is the only organization I know for the moment at the European level who really fight for European citizens' rights at the European level. You have a lot of organizations fighting for human rights, something, the environment, something very specific or very general. But really mentioning European rights, only few organizations are really dealing with these issues. We are quite specific, and we try to really deal with any kind of aspect of the European citizenship and the European citizenship rights.
I'm really in love with the mission of ECAS to empower citizens to exercise their rights.
If I think back to the ECAS that I contacted back in 1999 and the ECAS with which I'm engaged now, I wouldn't say that it's not so much a change, it's additions. That fundamental work of still being there for citizens, still providing that advice, the answers to their questions, that some of those which have really significant impacts on people's lives, is still there. It's still, the backbone, I think, of what ECAS does. But there are so many other things that we now do, partly because the concept of citizenship of the European Union has grown. And ECAS has been very much engaged in that.
When I took over ECAS as a director in 2014, the organization was working predominantly on EU rights, everything which is related to the concept of European citizenship, a bit more also on citizen participation. But at this point, in 2014, it seemed to me that freedom of movement is, and it hasn't been at this stage, very problematic. It became problematic immediately after that because of the refugee and the migration crisis, which had an impact on also internal EU mobility. People moving from one country to another for whatever reason started to experience more and more difficulties. And of course now with the COVID situation, we know what basically happened. Freedom of movement was totally dismantled overnight with barriers, and as we see, it's still not restored fully, and we don't know what exactly would happen. So now freedom of movement is an interesting subject to work on, very, very challenging, but in 2014 this wasn't the case. So therefore I thought, okay, it would be good if basically ECAS starts working on something which is a bit more forward-looking. Maybe a bit more experimental, even risky. And this is how we have decided and set up an additional focus area to the one on EU rights, which was the digital democracy focus area. We wanted to explore the potential of technology in order to enhance democracy and to foster more meaningful participation of citizens in policy making in between elections.
So whether it's things like how do you engage your right to vote as an EU national living in another EU member state. And you have the right to vote in local elections, you have the right to vote in European elections, and to stand as a candidate. Not many people do. Why not? How can we get more people engaged to vote? How can people understand what the European Union is about? So what is it you're voting for? So we're now looking at citizenship, sort of education, as it were. We're also looking at how do you improve the quality of democracy within the European Union through citizens' engagement, whether that's the citizens' initiatives that are there, but also the work that ECAS is now doing on e-democracy, that sort of digital engagement. All of those sorts of things have come, I suppose, partly with that development of citizenship. And ECAS has been about developing the concept and developing the tools. It's not just about the policy. It's about the how do we do this? How do we make it work?
We had a big campaign about peace and environment, and we had even a national vote about the abolishment of the army in 1989. This was 2 weeks after the Berlin Wall was falling, and this opened up our eyes and the eyes of many people in Europe about the possibility of building a democracy on the European level. But when that was possible after 1990, we also said we need tools to make this happen. So we were developing the idea of a European citizen initiative.
The ECI, for me, it's really a tool that everyone should know about it, first of all. And this is part of also our mission. That's what we try to do, because it's this unique participatory tool that citizens have to channel their voices and ask the Commission for the implementation of a legal proposal, the proposition of a legal proposal. So it is obviously an incredibly powerful tool because it's very unique. It's the only tool that we have at European level, actually, that citizens have at the European level to gather signatures and then to ask the Commission for something, to act on something.
I initially came across the work of ECAS when I was part of a group of civil society organisations that wanted to launch our European Citizens Initiative, and we were trying to work our way through the complexities of the kind of EU competences and the legal frameworks for the ECI. And we discovered, thankfully, that ECAS are available to help citizens that want to be involved in EU legislation and want to raise their voices as part of an ECI. So for us, it was a really great discovery.
We need in these times to have more participatory democracy, in the sense that we need the citizens and citizen demand for to participate more and more in political processes. And at European Union level, we have this tool to use, and that we don't have in other member states.
The European Citizens Initiative is a brilliant instrument because, unlike other petitions and other methods of campaigning that we might do, there's actually legal weight that the European Citizens Initiative has if it's successful. So the fact that if we reach 1 million signatures from across the EU, we will actually be able to put our topic on the EU agenda, have the European Commission and potentially the Parliament respond to it.
Even if you don't manage those 1 million signatures, you can have an impact because you actually fuel a public debate, also locally, and we've seen examples of that already in several cases, and particularly with the climate debate we have today, we see several initiatives on climate change, but also locally, and if they marry up, then you see actually a very nice way of gathering and people to support each other in a common goal.
I think it's absolutely brilliant that ECAS is around and makes themselves so available and ready to help for really whatever organisers of a European Citizens Initiative might need. For us, it's been such a help getting everything from legal advice through to data protection advice, finance advice, and also the fact that ECAS centralises a lot of knowledge. Because the ECI process is quite big, it can be a little bit daunting at times. Actually having the team at ECAS there being super friendly, super welcoming, and helping you navigate the complexity, meet others that have been through it, learn from them, share stories and experiences. It just makes you feel like you're part of something bigger and you're not doing your ECI on your own, but you're following a well-trodden path that lots of others have been guided through as well.
We're very grateful because we see there is a lot of expertise in the ECAS team, and the collaborative platform that they have set up to do so is really an added value, which we always get back also from organisers. The tools that they offer, the trainings that they offer, the learning materials have really helped a lot of organisers.
Recently, we've been working on very interesting topics such as EU crowdsourcing, which is digital democratic innovation, and it's good because we are going to continue working on this with ECAS over the coming months.
For us, e-democracy is important because with this new world in which technology is very fast-paced, we're trying to adapt to improve our democracy by using information and communication technologies and trying to take advantage of the potential of technology in order to, let's say, connect citizens to their governments and especially policymakers so that they can actually co-create policies together or even legislations together.
I would see the main contribution of ECAS as putting its expertise in this field, particularly of digital democracy, democratic innovation, on the agenda of the EU institutions, on the EU policy agenda.
We have the conference on the future of Europe at the moment too. And one of the things with that, I think, has been a growing recognition amongst even the organisers of the conference that citizens have to be there. And I would take that as a bit of a win for ECAS, almost having mainstreamed the concept that citizens should be heard within this. It's not only ECAS, but they are very important within that.
What we're trying to do is to explain to decision makers how they can use technology in order to improve democracy, democratic processes, and especially to work together with their citizens more often using these technologies.
So we need civil society actors to explain, to decode the tools of digital democracy and make it usable, understandable, and palatable to citizens.
The main thing is that we think that there is this potential for technology to improve democracy, but only when it's done in the right way. And that's what ECAS advocates for. And in the future, I think that our wish and our hope is that e-democracy is just used in a much more systematic way. So this means that it shouldn't be a one-off initiative that a politician or a mayor, a local mayor decides to use an e-democratic tool, but it should just be a normal way of seeing democracy. The fact that citizens are constantly called upon to give their opinions, to give their contributions, and that policymakers will work together with them in the 5 years that they're elected representatives.
I think the European Union has gone much larger and it has gone much more complex. In the future, there are actual real questions about the cohesion of the Union, about citizens living in peace, citizens living in prosperity. And I think the most important future challenge for ECAS is to keep Europe in the eyes of the citizens as something which is worth living and which is worth experiencing. If ECAS can continue to show the citizens how important Europe is, that is a tremendous contribution, because Europe lives and survives from the bottom up.
In order to be in touch with the reality of the everyday life of citizens, you need to be able to communicate with them on a daily basis. So we do that. For us, it's very important, also because through this contact and through the services that we provide to citizens, we accumulate the knowledge and the evidence of what works and what doesn't work. And this is the basis for our strategies, intervention strategies for improvement.
I see that during these 30 years, ECAS has developed from a Brussels-centered organization to a Europe-centered organization, and this is very good.
Of all the years, the 30th anniversary of ECAS, we find citizens' rights have been peeled back as a result of the COVID emergency. And it's really quite ironic. At a time when we're looking at solving problems of citizens' participation, we're rolling back citizens' rights. So for ECAS, a very strong item in the short-term future is going to be in dealing with ensuring that those rights are returned and indeed reinforced.
All those challenges, we prefer to look at them as opportunities. because the challenges would not end and the crisis would not end. The fact that ECAS is professional enough and also agile and manages to adapt and to address the challenges, not only, but also to a bit foresee the future, is for me the recipe for success.
I think that the role of ECAS will only continue to get even more important than it already is. I think as EU citizens, it's so important that everyone is aware of their democratic rights, their ability to participate in democratic processes, to have their voice heard and to have that count. And I think that in that way, ECAS is uniquely equipped to help people understand, learn about, and realise those rights. So I think it's vitally important, and it's fantastic that such a service is out there to help each of us be able to do those things.
But I would like to congratulate ECAS to having reached this important milestone of 30 years. And I wish for them a very bright future ahead where they continue doing this, and also particularly continue to invest in the digitalization of the services that they offer to everyone, and to keep investing in the network facility that they have, because I think this is quite unique in building this EU democracy and make sure that citizens really have a voice to be heard.
My birthday wish for ECAS is that they actually keep working for the European citizens, that they continue to be the voice of the European citizens here in Brussels, translating from the member states into the Brussels bubble.
So my wish is for us to be at the driving seat. And this is why it's so important to be forward-looking and to try to guess, somehow, hopefully an informed guess, of what the future will bring, so that we are there before it takes place and be prepared for it.
30 years of ECAS, 30 years European Citizens Action Service.
30 years of ECAS is also 30 years of the ECIID. I'm so happy to work together with you on this big project and so many other ideas to make European democracy more democratic.